Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. I thought we would do something fun and a little bit different from any of the other videos that I've done before today. I wanted to talk about books. If you know me, you know that I love to read. I actually have started a book club with a few of my mom friends and we meet for the first time this month. So I'm really excited for that. But I wanted to do April recap of all of the books that I read. I have my iPad here and I have my Goodreads up, so we're just gonna go through the list. I read 5 books for the month of April. I started with Emily Wilde's Compendium of Lost Tales, and I'll put that up on the screen. I gave that book a 5. I love that book. So basically, Emily Wilde is this character in this book, and this is the 3rd book in a series. She's a professor at a university, and she is studying fairy and fairyland and the stories and things from her experiences and whatnot. She actually ends up marrying a fairy in one of the previous books. So this is one of the adventures with him. He is royalty within the fairy world, and they're on this journey together to essentially, in this book, overthrow his evil stepmother and find out if she's truly dead because they thought they killed her in the 2nd book, so that he'd be the king of his kingdom. So this is the 3rd book. It is such a cute little book and they're just cozy, good reads. I love it so much. I love all 3 of her books that I've read so far. So the 2nd book that I read, it's called She's Not Sorry. It was an audiobook that I listened to, and I actually found this book because it was one of those available now on Libby. I'm a library girl, so I don't have any of the physical copies of these books, do you guys? Because I use the library and Libby, my library app on my phone, to borrow books from. So She's Not Sorry. This is a novel about this nurse. She's an ICU nurse, and basically she gets like newly in contact with somebody she hasn't spoken to since she was in high school. And at the same time, while she's at work, she's caring for this woman who initially they thought she was trying to commit suicide and she jumped off of a bridge. And then later we figure out that they think that there was some foul play involved and that she might have been murdered. So the patient's name is Caitlin, and she's in this coma when we first meet her. And we learn the backstory of how these two were interconnected. Megan, who is the ICU nurse taking care of Caitlin, who is the girl in the coma. These stories from like parents' point of view, and then you hear lost roommates' point of view. And then you try to figure out during the story, was Caitlin actually pushed off the bridge? And why was she pushed off the bridge? That's what everybody wants to know. Was there an abusive boyfriend? Or was she in with the wrong crowd? Or is there a fight? And then you're seeing Megan's point of view too, taking care of Caitlin while she's in the hospital. And you're just like seeing how their lives are intertwined and why this patient is affecting Megan the way that she is. She's been a nurse for like 20 years, I think the book says. So you're like, why is this patient consuming Megan so much? And you learn that through there. I gave it a 4-star rating. There were a couple cheesy parts in there, and then there's Megan's teenage daughter that you learn about in there, and then there's other nursing staff that you have interactions with as well, and some of the side characters that like, you meet during there, I didn't love some of them either, so that's why I gave it a 4 stars. The 3rd book that I read is The Dutch House. I'm actually really excited for this book because The Dutch House is my book club of the month for my new moms group that we're doing together. So I gave this book a 4. I really liked it. I really did. I kept seeing it on my recommended for you and it just wasn't grabbing me. And then it popped up recently as a download now for an audiobook. And I was like, I don't have an audiobook that I'm listening to right now. I'll go ahead and listen to it. Well, Tom Hanks is the voice for this audiobook. So I had trouble. I really did have trouble with this book, like listening to it. 5 seconds, I was just waiting for Tom Hanks to be like, Janae. And I was just like, this is so strange hearing this book and like characters POV as Tom Hanks, if that makes sense. So The Dutch House is family who moves into this giant home right after the Second World War. And it confuses you a little bit because you're made to think that this is like a poor family who got rich. So then you learn about like the house and things like that. You're like, how did this poor man, like this guy who was poor and his wife and you know, and they only had the 1 kid at the time, but there's 2 kids. So it's told from the son's point of view, and he was born after the house was bought. So you get of everybody's point of view for the house. And then when they bought the house, there are the staff in the house that helps run the house. And he ends up keeping them on staff. So you learn the point of views about the family and things through the staff members as well. Essentially, mother is like a missionary, so she runs away, and their daughter, Maeve. So Maeve is the oldest. Maeve comes down with diabetes essentially like around this time that her mother leaves. So everybody thought that like her mother like sent her this illness, like it almost killed her. So then negative connotation is negative taste in your mouth about the mother, until, you know, we learn more about her later. But Maeve, like so much of her childhood is shaped by the fact that like she remembers her mother coming and going, and then she leaves and then she never comes back. So that like really, really shapes her as a person. Cyril, who is the father, he ends up getting married to this woman, and she has 2 children that like the kids are like briefly introduced and they're like, by the way, we're getting married. And the children are a little bit thrown aback, and they're, you know, like, what does this mean? Stepmother isn't too like keen with any of the kids. Like, it's kind of giving Cinderella a little bit. The stepmother at one point like takes Maeve's bedroom and gives it to one of her daughters because she's away at college, and she's like, oh, she just doesn't need to have a room in the house anymore. Like, this doesn't need to be her room. Eventually, the house falls into the stepmother's hands, and Maeve and Danny get thrown out of the house after their father dies. House that they've loved and grown up with and has been such like a central part of their family. Revisiting the house, they sit on the street. You learn about the family who built the house initially, and like where the Dutch house got its name from and stuff like that. So the story itself was like it was a progression of their lives. So you really do get like a ton of stories from everybody within and how it has affected and shaped them from children into their adulthood. The rifts it causes between the families, all of the feelings and stuff surrounding this house. The ending was fine. I didn't love the ending. I was looking for more, and I was really kind of disappointed with Maeve's character. I wanted so much more for her. Maeve is shaped around suffering, I feel like. I just really, really, really wanted something good for her. Like, I really wanted not even a happy ending, but just like somebody outside of her brother that was just like love and ride or die. I just feel like it was a letdown for like what I wanted for the characters. And then the 4th book that I read, Intermezzo by Sally Rooney. I did not like this book that much. A 3, but I honestly would truly say it's like more of a 2.5 for me. I don't love how it was written. Essentially, story of 2 brothers after their father dies, and they're very, very different. They're very, very like far apart in age. And one of them, Peter, is like drinking and drugging himself like through life, but he's like also a successful attorney or lawyer or something. Somehow like he's working in law, but he's also like strung out. Has this ex-girlfriend that like was essentially the love of his life, and he's still like in contact with her and like clearly not over it. She essentially gets like in this accident that is like incredibly vague, but I can tell that there's like lacking in the intimacy or romance in their relationship, and that's kind of why she ended it, because she was like, you shouldn't have to miss out on like in a relationship because of this terrible thing that's happened to me, and he can't get over it. But he also has this side piece that is this girl who is like considerably younger than him, and she's just like a wild girl, definitely sells, you know, like nudies or like partially nude photographs on the internet for money and stuff. Has like absent parents, very young, trying to figure herself out through life, like trying to get herself through school, those kind of things. And then you have Ivan, who is this like awkward, nerdy kid. He's 22, turns 23, like within the book. His braces and like entire personality is like chess essentially, and he doesn't really have any friends, and he's battling a lot internally, like a lot like insecurity. He carries so much insecurity, kind of assumed from his brother, their conversations, different things, and like he just takes everything as an attack to him, even when Peter wasn't attacking him. I'm not saying that Peter is like this super nice, awesome brother, because there's definitely some moments within there that you're like, you both suck. Like, can you just talk it out? Like, actually have a conversation. After his dad dies, Peter goes nuts, drinking, drugs, like screwing this girl that's like 10 years younger than him. And then Ivan, he like plays a round of chess, but like his chess scores have kind of sucked. Like, he really was thinking that he was like a pretty decent player and he could get maybe like his master title, those kind of things. And then he didn't, because he was like taking care of his dad while he was sick. His dad had cancer. So both of the brothers just kind of like are in this extended period of a really low point, like during their dad being sick and then ultimately dying. He passes in the funeral and everything. Ivan ends up meeting this woman who is considerably older than him, like 8 or 10 years. So there's kind of the parallel of opposites with the brothers. And then they end up getting in like a huge fight. And that's like essentially what the book is based about, is like this one fight and the fact that like neither one of them will just talk to each other. And I get it, like they're grieving, like they're not in the right state of mind. They were never really close to begin with because of their age gap. They're also like 10 years apart. Ivan's like 22 and his brother's like 34 or 33, something like that. So they're like 10, 12 years apart. But I didn't love it because I felt like it was a really long book for not a lot that was happening. They have the funeral, this argument plays out, and then it just feels like a lot of repetitive back and forth, like between the two brothers. Like a lot of it is internal, you know, feelings and emotions and insecurities that they're working through, but also you have, you know, the dynamic of like these two are pissed at each other and like just won't talk it out, and like neither one of them have really good coping or like emotional regulation. Bit irritated reading this book. Like I put the book down multiple times and I was like, this book feels incredibly too long for the story that it's telling. I gave it a 3, but like realistically it's more of a 2.5 for me. And then the last book that I read was The Great Alone by Kristin Hannah. I am a Kristin Hannah fan. I love her books. I read The Women, The Nightingale, and The Four Winds, and The Great Alone was my last one out of her like 4 bigger books that I read. Number 2 for her. The Nightingale is my favorite book by her, but The Great Alone was definitely number 2. It pulled so many emotions like throughout the entire book. Like a character who is Lenny. She's a 13-year-old girl whose father was sent to Vietnam. He was a prisoner of war and he was taken for like 6 years captive, and he comes back and he's like angry and moody, and he has a lot of like symptoms of clinical PTSD. He has the nightmares and the flashbacks and the mood swings and the anger and those kind of things. One of his fellow like army brothers leaves him a plot of land and kind of a rundown cabin up in Alaska. Lenny's dad can't really hold a job. He can't really do much. He's just struggling to get by because he's like struggling so much after coming back from Vietnam, after being a prisoner of war. Like, so they up and they move their whole family to Alaska. Well, they get there and the locals are like, you are grossly underprepared for this winter. Like winter up here is absolutely brutal. Like it kills people in one way or another. Like it either drives people crazy and like they die, or like accidents or like animal attacks, those kind of things. Like you're out in the wilderness. And so they're like helping them trying to prepare for winter and things. And then winter comes around and Lenny's father gets more violent. He's struggling more. You come to find out like he's abusing her mother. Try to run away. It was unsuccessful the first time. They end up running away again a second time, much later in the story. And then between that, the father, like some of the neighbors intervene and they tell him like during the winter, you are no longer like to be here anymore. You need to go work and stay away from Alaska because it makes you nutso, like more than you already are. But Lenny meets Matthew, who is the only other person in the school. The school's like, I think there's like 6 or 8 kids in the school when she moves up there, and Matthew's like the first person that she meets. He's her age, preteen, you know, kind of like beginning like flowering of romance. But Matthew's father he's just like the town, you know, like helper guy. He's got money. He wants to help like grow the town more and bring in revenue and just like create like a better place within the town. Like he wants to upgrade the bar, things like that. Well, Lenny's father and Matthew's father kind of have it out. Matthew's father is just like, look, I'm just trying to make this a better place for everybody. Like, we love our home, let's enjoy it, let's make it better. And he's just like, we don't need any improvements, we don't need your fancy stuff, we don't need your money, like whatever. And he's very angry. Lenny and Matthew fall very deeply in love. Matthew had snuck in the house and they had their little rendezvous, their alone time, whatever. They're gonna run away to college together, and Lenny just had to get through the last summer before college. But she couldn't do that. She was like craving Matthew, couldn't be like away from him. Lenny's father like absolutely forbade it because he hated Matthew's father so much. There was the father rivalry essentially. Cora is her mother, Lenny's mother, and Lenny and Cora end up killing her father. Lenny tells him that she's pregnant and she's 16 at this point in the story, and he starts beating the crap out of her, and her mother like snaps like into a fit of rage and is like, not my Lenny. That's the love of my life, my true love. It's getting dark in here because it's about to start storming, so I need to keep going because the lighting is getting weird. Cora ends up shooting him and killing him, and then they have to run away after disposing of his body because, you know, women aren't protected. Domestic violence at this point in history. So they run away and they hide and they get new names and things like that with the help of Cora's parents. Cora comes down with lung cancer and she's very, very sick. She's not responding to treatments, and she ultimately dies and leaves this letter to Lenny and is like freeing her to go back to Alaska because Lenny longs for Alaska. She misses Matthew. Also, like during the time of this fight and whatnot, they get into a really bad accident, Matthew and Lenny. And they fall essentially like off of this like siding of the cliff, and Matthew comes down to save Lenny, and he ends up getting like a traumatic brain injury. Like he's in a rehab facility. He's not talking. He can't use like so much of his body. Like his leg was shattered in an accident. Like he has this traumatic brain injury. He's like screaming and yelling. Like he's just not fully there. The doctors didn't know if he was gonna make it like out of the ICU essentially. Lenny feels this deep guilt about leaving Matthew behind, and she like longs to get back there. So Cora basically writes this letter confessing to the murder, saying it was just her. Lenny was not involved, so that Lenny can go back up there. Lenny takes her and her son back up to Alaska. And then there's, you know, some ins and outs there of like struggles that she has to get through and work through. And then she like gets to see Matthew again. And I think like 6 or 7 years passed since the last time she saw Matthew, which was when they fell. And then she saw him like in the ICU and going to the rehab facility, but he didn't really know that she was there. The story ended beautifully with their reconnecting and like coming together again. And it was beautiful. I absolutely loved how it ended. So those were the 5 books that I read for the month of April. If you liked this video, let me know if you want to hear more. I love talking books. I love reading, and I'm super, super, super excited to do the first Mom's Book Club. Get to have this discussion with my friends too and just like chat through books with them. If you liked my video, subscribe and let's hang out again. Bye.